Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY! A 43-point night for Tyrese Haliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Renew now, drives in low, throws up a shot. It doesn't go. Tipped up and in by Anthony Leal. Indiana takes the lead.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. Thank you so much for joining us here on this incredible weather August. It continues. We had some amazing weather in July, and then it got hotter than Hades for a few days when August rolled in. But what is with this just unbelievable weather in this time of year when it's supposed to be crazy? Football practice underway for high school, college, and the pros, and games soon to be coming as the NFL kicked off their preseason play yesterday. All day long, games are on. Hopefully we'll have the opportunity to talk to Mr. Greg, or our good friend Greg from the ISB Sports Network, Greg Rakestraw, of course. And we'll hear from some IU players. This Saturday, we're 2 weeks away from the first Indiana game. So, and high school is a week before that, I believe. So plenty there. NFL preseason games yesterday, the Colts in action. You got to see just a little bit of Anthony Richardson, not a lot. Nothing spectacular, nothing to write home about. But I'll tell you, if you're a Bears fan, there's some excitement there. Tell me they didn't make the right move getting Caleb Williams, and they got Roma Dunze from Washington, the former throwing target of Michael Penix Jr. So you got that going for you. The Olympics close, and it's on to Los Angeles for the 2028 Olympics. That's funny. NASCAR had some excitement yesterday, some fireworks. We'll talk about that as NASCAR returns after a couple of week hiatus because of the Olympics. The Live Golf Tour suspends Graham McDowell. It's almost funny for using a banned substance, but wait till you hear what this banned substance is. MLS Indy 11 may talk about that if we can get Greg on today. I know he's a busy guy. So no controversy from the closing ceremonies, according to Brian, which is always a great thing. A great Olympics by the team, by America, by the USA, Team USA overall. Team USA wins the gold in basketball. There was no way they were going to get beat. I mean, that's just a team that when they turn it on, it's on. I mean, you've got some of the absolute best players in the world and more than any other team. So it would have taken quite the upset for that to happen. The State Fair is coming up in Indiana, right around the corner. That means deep fried Snickers bars and ham sandwiches, deep fried ham sandwich wrapped in a donut or something. What other crazy food items come out at the fair? What are some of your favorite crazy food items that come out at the fair? Todd Leary could not be with us today, and we're going to be moving him anyway to probably Fridays, because in just a couple of weeks, today's the 12th, I believe. So, I think in 2 weeks from now on Mondays, Don Fisher returns the fish. So that will begin in a couple of weeks. Looking forward to having Don back on as football season's here, baby. And If you haven't been paying attention, of course, Buck Sewer, his longtime cohort as the color man for Indiana football, he returns after Rhett Lewis filled that spot for a couple of years, but he was tapped to the Big Ten Network, already having responsibilities with the NFL Network. It was just a matter of time. I mean, Rhett was great at what he did. You could just it was just a nice, different take on things, and it's a shame to see him go, but it's a good thing to have someone like Mr. Sewer in the back pocket. Brian said he deep fried Snickers takes 4 years off your life. I bet eating a deep fried Snickers takes about 10 years off your life, I would imagine. Brian said France played their guts out. Yeah, that was going to be a great game. I mean, there's no way it could not be. You've got NBA guys playing. And again, there's no better event or events than some of these, like the tennis, the golf, the basketball, where these big time pros were playing. You're not going to get to see that kind of basketball in the All-Star game, which is in essence what that was. And so, boom, take it when you can get it. As it returns 4 years from now, and that's going to be a completely different team when they get to Los Angeles in 2028. But that's going to be if I was an American, I would hate that the Olympics were in America. I would love the fact, like going to Paris, going to Greece, going to someplace fun and exciting. That would be cool. Brian says that he bet Fish is excited to call some football that doesn't suck. I bet he is. I bet he's excited. I bet he's very excited for the football season, and as is a lot of the Hoosier fans or Boiler fans or whomever you may be pulling for. It's that time of year. College football is just fun. If you're a team like Indiana, it's going to take a few weeks to get into the meat of the schedules. They open up with Florida International at home, followed by Western Illinois, before going on the road to the Rose Bowl in Los Angeles. A lot of people have told me that they're going to that game. I've heard a lot of people talk about going to LA. LA, of course, a destination place. The Rose Bowl, a destination place. Someplace that Indiana has not been able to get themselves to since 1968. So it's going to be, UCLA is not a big drawer either. So if Indiana can get a good amount of fans out there, that's going to be, I don't expect it to be something like it was against Arizona when they played them, was it 1 year ago? Everything starts to run together. But when they played in Las Vegas, was that the beginning of last season? Holy cow! Everything's starting to run together. But Indiana outdrew the Arizona fans. To me, it was 80%, 20%, which is just absolutely nuts. Being that the Arizona campus is just a few hours away from Las Vegas. In Indiana, everybody had to fly for the most part, unless you already lived out there. So, Ross says the Fish made his return to radio last Friday, and he was fired up. Yeah, that was probably just a one-off for that. But, yeah, I guarantee he's going to be fired up. He's ready to go. He's had an off season, a great off season. Indiana's had a great off season. What is there not to be fired up about? There's so much excitement going along for this program. And you've heard me. If you've been listening here, you know that I'm very, very high on this team and what I think that they are going to be able to accomplish for a myriad of different reasons. But regardless, it should be fun, and I'm looking forward to it. We're going to take a break, our first break. And before I do that, introduce our new producer, Nick the Stick. Nick, the producer. How you doing, man?
What's going on, Jim? How are we doing? How was the weekend?
Oh, it's just another few days of of living the dream.
I feel that. What's going on, guys? New producer around here, helping Jim. Just graduated college, for all the local indie people.
Speedway boy. He's
yes,
a Speedway
sir.
boy.
You can tell right here. So
Got
big
the
sports
Speedway hat
guy.
on.
Yep, big cross country, track and field guy, big racing guy. Scratch golfer, not that good.
Are you really a scratch golfer?
No, I'm terrible. I just go out there and play. I used to work over at Eagle Creek. So
I was gonna say, you're a scratch golfer. That's no fun.
no.
Hey, we've got to take a break. We'll do so, and we'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this. I don't know what you're doing now. Nick? Hey, Nick.
What's up?
What are you doing?
Playing the bump music.
Yeah, we don't need bumps throughout the 3-minute break. You play that when you come back from the break. It's a 3-minute hole for the commercials that you'll put in. You keep track of where you take the break, and then so you go 3 minutes, and you'll put the commercial block inside of that, like covering up what we're doing right now. Makes sense? You'll play the bump when we come back from this 3-minute break. You seem confused.
A little bit, yes.
Ask questions now.
It's just a little confusing because we're still live and everyone can see. So that's
yes, and that's part of what they enjoy is getting to see the behind the scenes.
Okay, this is new to me, so yeah.
But you'll have to go back and make sure that that's a tight 3 minutes. So boom, you lay that down.
My bad.
But also, that's okay. It's all part of the process. But when did we start the break?
Right there, it was at 10, 11:30. I can go through and edit it up.
Okay, so that means we're back right now. Right?
Should have about 35 more seconds.
All right. Just play the bump when it's time.
All right, we should be good.
This segment is brought to you by the Rusty Gator.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. Thank you so much for being with us. As always, Jim Coyle holding things down here at the fort. Got a new producer, Nick, the producer, joining us on this day as well. And I hope you guys have had a great weekend, rather. And what's going on this week? What do you got planned for the week? What's happening as we get closer and closer to football season? And I'm greatly looking forward to it. We're really 3 weeks away from Indiana's first game, but when you get to this Saturday, will be 2 weeks from that Saturday. You got all of your tailgating stuff. What's new? What's new that's out there tailgating wise? Is there anything cool and new that anybody's bringing? There just seems to be every year they invent new things to take out there and use. But looking forward to the smell of everybody barbecuing and those smells wafting through, and just the if this weather stays like this, holy cow, this will be unbelievably fantastic. It has been just unbelievable. July was unbelievable just in it by itself. And once August arrived, it was like, oh, hey, the heat. So, but what happened this weekend? Another unbelievable weekend of no heat, no humidity. The evenings were just like late September. It's crazy. So, but who's complaining? Looking forward to it. We've got a couple of clips to hear from a couple of Indiana players that met with the media last week. First of which, Carter Smith. He's a returning freshman. Or he's not a freshman. He was a freshman, but he's got the experience. Left tackle. Indiana seems to have a pretty solid offensive line. Bob Bostad, the only coach retained by Kurt Cignetti. That says a lot for Indiana. And the confidence that Kurt Cignetti has in Bob Bostad. How would you like to be having been the former OL offensive line coach at JMU, like one of the only guys that didn't get to come to the new job? That would stink. But NFL action began yesterday. Preseason games, the Colts in action, Anthony Richardson in action. Not a lot of action. He was on the field. He played a couple of series, but not much getting done, which I don't know how much you would expect. But if you look at Chicago with Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, and that crew, they were getting a lot done. They scored a bunch of points in winning their game. So it's still curious as to, is he still working his way back? Are the Colts still working him back? Is this just trying to ease him in? A lot of questions will be coming up, and we will see how that goes for the Colts as they're closer and closer to play as well. And the NFL will get started. That will be a blast. These preseason games, they stink. Let's be honest with you. You're going to get to see the starters for a couple of series at best. So, David, with a happy 812 day. Never thought about that. Shout out to the 812. That's my crew. That's where I'm from. Five Lefts, the Bears. He's a Bears fan. Hey, man, you want to talk about a team that has gone from looking like wishy-washy last year to like, what's on the horizon? And now you understand why they drafted Caleb Williams when they had Justin Fields on the roster already. So, yeah, that'll be fun. NASCAR returned with a bang as they were, I think, in Richmond? Last short track race of the year, and playoffs important. And what was that little dude? The number 3 back in winner's circle, but I'm not sure how popular that was, as he boots Joey Logano and then turns Denny Hamlin, all in the last part of the final stretch. So it's going to be interesting to see how that comes out. I'm looking forward to that. But we've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and we'll be back with that and more right after this break.
This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East.
Why is he not going in? Okay. There we go.
Hey, Jim, how are you?
Oh, brother, how are you doing?
Hanging in there, man. Doing all right.
Yeah, I hear you. We've got a new producer, and we're just going through the growing pains.
Gotcha.
I did, I don't know, probably 30 minutes of the show, and we weren't rolling.
No.
I'm like, all right.
Happens.
How was your weekend?
Not bad, not bad. Saw Osterman went to a concert at White River on Saturday night. So
Who was that?
Jason Isbell.
I saw there's so many concerts coming up, man. A ton.
Indy brings him in for sure.
I just missed the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah, that was
Not a
July.
fan.
Yeah, I thought about that one, but they were expensive. They were big time expensive. It was like $100 a ticket.
Holy moly. And let's see. Team USA.
We got about one more minute.
Yep, you're right. Let's see. Trying to get fill-ins.
10 seconds.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Monday. Thank you so much for being with us. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star joins us now. Dustin, how was your weekend, sir?
Not bad, not bad. Got to see our good friend Zach Osterman. We went out to see Jason Isbell together at the White River State Park up here in Indy, so that was good times. And yeah, watched a lot of Olympics too. Closed that out. The gold medal basketball games were both totally insane and awesome, and track was great and everything like that. So I'm gonna miss these Olympics. I thought this was a lot of fun. This was a really, one of the more fun I've had watching that doesn't make any sense in grammar, what I just said right there. But it's as much fun as I can remember having watching the Olympics. That was a heck of a show.
You know what? I think that seems to be a feeling that is widespread among people. It was the events were cool. I found myself watching more different events than I would have in the past. And there didn't seem to be a lot of controversies, because when we think of Olympics and international stuff, it is nothing but controversies all the time. And for what they had, it was chicken feed for normal. So that's a great thing. The locations, some of these locations were unbelievable. I mean, they played beach volleyball at the foot of the Eiffel Tower. The equine events were out at these just
Versailles, yeah.
Oh, yeah, Versailles. It's
Versailles.
like, oh my God. It's just so cool to see some of these events. And then I talked about it earlier. Golf, tennis, basketball. Trying to think some of these sports that were just fantastic to watch, because just the basketball alone, you actually got to see an NBA All-Star team play at an All-Star level. That's you don't get to see that when it's an All-Star game because they're just jacking up threes and playing matador defense. But this was a blast. The tennis was a blast. The golf was a blast. It was watching that come down. You didn't know who was going to win. So this Olympics, for some reason, was super, super fun. Incredible run for the Americans and an incredible run for Indiana athletes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll touch on a couple of those points. I mean, I think I read a column from our, from Brendan Quinn. I don't know if, certainly an old friend from the Big Ten beat, basically who's, star has continued to rise over at The Athletic, my old teammate there. He wrote a column last night just talking about how we didn't know as a people how much we needed this, and it takes some remembering to think back that this is the first open one since COVID. That obviously Tokyo was barely attended because of COVID policies. Even the Winter Olympics that followed, I think in China in 2022 was pretty closed down, and to have one that was sort of past that, even though you had a little bit of COVID stuff work its way in there, obviously with Noah Lyles. Noah Lyles ran through it, still got a bronze medal. Basically didn't get gold in the 200, but still ran through COVID to get it, which is pretty wild. I mean, questionable, but obviously still ran a great race. But full crowds obviously at everything, and excitement at everything, and because France really showed out at a lot of things, including, making it to both basketball gold medal games, making to the soccer gold medal game, and having just again some spectacular individual performances. Marchand in swimming was incredible. That I think just upped the ante. Basically, when it's important, I think that the host country does well. The rules are made for them to do well. Obviously, they get to qualify at every sport. Which is not something that everybody else gets. That's reserved for the host country. That made a difference. I mean, there was a high level of excitement, from start to finish. It was cool for me. We my wife and I went to Paris in June, and to see everything, like you said, the way it was, the way they used the city was magnificent. Was so cool. And we obviously we only saw a handful of venues in terms of what they were going to use, and we didn't know what it was going to be like. But I mean, like every road race, whether it was cycling or the marathons or whatever, or the triathlon stuff, I mean, obviously just really did a good job of using the city. And you could see just sort of all this cool, not just touristy stuff, but you just took in the beauty of the city. Anytime they had a chance to showcase it, they did it. But even in the closed venues, the indoor stuff and whatever, like you could tell the electricity was really real. And so that was just I mean, it was a fantastic event and everything. To your point about Indiana athletes, I mean, the U.S. really showed out, I think, in a lot of great stuff. I mean, like you usually come out of, there's almost, you come out of every Olympics almost, there's this one area usually where they slipped, that you could say, okay, like the Americans were really, really good, but they had this area. And I think the only I would say event where they were disappointments was, they screwed up, an exchange in the 4x100 relay and track, which I think, because the Americans are so good in sprints, the men managed to screw this up every year somehow, some way. They managed to mess up an exchange, but other than that, they were incredible. And Cole Hawker's run, in the 1500, Cathedral graduate, Cole Hawker was magnificent. One of the coolest things I've seen. I mean, just awesome. And I'm an old distance track guy. I'm not good at it. Was never good at it, but like Cole's race was, for going up against Ingebrigtsen and Kerr, and that's all they wanted to talk about, because those guys were drawing the entire week, or really probably for months before that, about who was going to win that race. And, it was down, seemed like it was down to those two, and he and the Goose from Louisville were just in there, and just Hawker managed to just take that inside and stun everybody. It is definitely one of the coolest, moments in the entire Olympics, I think, for anybody. But, for it to be an Indiana guy was cool. I thought it was awesome. Also, that David Woods was out there, was our longtime track guy, who's freelancing now and, was working for both us and for DieStat. And so Woodsy got to write about it. It did kind of a broadcast thing too. So like bringing all that together was certainly cool from Indiana perspective. You saw a handful, obviously, of other Indiana athletes, medal, Lily King, obviously getting a relay medal. Just a lot of fun, exciting stuff for the U.S. and Indiana. And again, in some areas where they don't always do well. I mean, like Hawker was part of a great distance finish. Grant Fisher got a couple medals. Like the Americans, for a long time, weren't great at distance running in terms of medaling at international events, and Hawker was kind of the crown jewel of a really good performance there that kind of really rounded out what they did in track all the way around. So that was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, it's very, very. He upset the top two favorites, which was cool to see as well. So awesome for him, and awesome way to get Olympic gold. Lily King finishes off her career with a gold medal as well. And there's a lot of stories for the Americans. Of course, you mentioned basketball, but that women's game, holy cannolis. Man, that could have been so different. You want to talk about the margin of a foot on a line? That was it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's wild because, I mean, it didn't require a replay. It was immediately obvious that the foot was squarely on the line, and it wasn't like edge of your toes or anything like that. It was full foot, like going through the middle of your foot. But yeah, I mean, it's a remarkable shot to make, like just sort of all in one motion, just throwing it up and banking it in. And it's like, okay, like if the foot is 6 inches back, it's a tie ball game and you're going to overtime in Paris against France, and like that would have been just some kind of environment to have to win in, would have been just absolutely incredible. And that's the difference. It's that small, and it's just, there's not, and it wasn't like she had time to set her feet. Like you couldn't look at her as having done something wrong.
It was just a quick bounce, boom. It was a bang.
Got it. Like had no time to think, had no time to set her feet, had no time to get anything together, had no idea. And just nailed it. And so like, and you're there and it's like, wow, that's a great shot. And it's not enough. And that's that's true all in one motion. You're like, that's a heck of a way to win a basketball game, to not get the stop on the last possession, but be fortunate enough that it's not enough to get you to overtime. It's just, really but a remarkable game. And obviously, U.S. had its struggles. I mean, you just rarely see, the American women, have those kind of, struggles, turnovers, just a lot of, I don't like to use, sloppiness, I guess is the best way to put it. I mean, and I thought you saw a lot of similar stuff from the American men. It really is a situation where, you've seen enough games to know like that these games happen, like basically when you're the big favorite, when everybody's expecting you to dominate, that could be a tough situation. I mean, sometimes you're just that much better than the other team, but sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're, like all you have to do is make a couple mistakes and the gap isn't as big as, a lot of people think it is. And that was definitely the case for the men, for most of the tournament, because I mean, obviously you saw just how much better, the game has gotten internationally on the men's side. But you saw improvements on the women's side too. I mean, I think this was the best, international field you've seen for women's basketball. They didn't get pushed a ton, but you at least saw moments where you're like, okay, like this is, teams are getting better out there. That there is real improvement because there is more focus on the game, more people are interested in it, and they're getting better and better at it. And so that's going to make life harder on obviously the U.S. men, and that's been the case for a while, but the U.S. women as well. And so if you go in there with some nerves and you're in a position where you're not totally certain about the passes you're making, you're forcing them a little bit, you're hoping things are going to be there when they're not, or you're trying to create something by throwing stuff, throwing a pass into traffic and hoping it gets through and hoping you thread the needle, things can go sideways on you pretty fast. And, and if they've got a hot shooting night or whatever, or a hot shooter, it can get pretty wild. Obviously, Serbia made a ton of shots, and the Americans were very fortunate to get out of that on the men's side. And again, on the women's side, you just saw so many turnovers. And, the one woman, number 4, for a minute thought she was Steph, I think, hit one of those deep threes as they were pushing it and made that a game. Gabby Williams was phenomenal as well. And so, you do see that there is a weight sometimes, especially in an international competition when you're in a road environment. It's a road game, when you're playing the host country, and in both cases, France has invested a lot of money in basketball. And so you are dealing with a different animal. And, on the international scene, you've probably had less time to work together than they have. You understand your teammates less, even though you've played against them for all these years. It's a different thing. And I think you saw that play out. You've seen games like this in every sport, where a team is supposed to win big and doesn't. And then it has to hang in there. And you saw both teams do it, and they did make huge plays down the stretch, when they had to. Women made big plays down the stretch when they had to. Obviously, Steph Curry was magnificent on the men's side to just make some of the best shots I've ever seen in my life to win that, to win, both against Serbia and against France. It was amazing stuff in both cases.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the men next. Steph Curry. I'm not going to say he's been quiet, but it's kind of hard to be loud when you're surrounded by what he's surrounded by. You don't have to be loud. You just have to be effective. But he was both toward the end, and it's just great to see. He's 36, man. I know that's not old, but in Olympic dog years, that's different. That's something different. But this team showed what I expected them to show, and just to flex their muscles. Although, playing against France, playing against Serbia, quality teams with NBA players on those rosters. So we knew that was going to be tough, but this is how it should be. Fun, right. but very competitive.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's almost important to say at this point, it's not just NBA players anymore. It's NBA All-Stars, it's MVPs. We're past the point of, they got a couple guys you heard of. They got a couple guys who are sixth men or, coming off the bench and they have sort of these elevated roles in international play. And there was still some of that over the course of the tournament. I mean, like, you see a guy like Patty Mills puts on an Australia jersey and he's a superstar, he's been a very good NBA player. But there were a few of those guys that you see, like they're just different players when they put on their country's jersey. But Nikola Jokic is 3-time MVP. Obviously the U.S. didn't play Greece, but Giannis is over there with his couple of MVPs. Luka Doncic barely missed the tournament in Slovenia because they got beat by Greece. But you're talking, first team All NBA guy, who's going to be an MVP someday soon. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at Canada, first team All NBA. There were all five first team all NBA players, had a team in the tournament. They were on 5 different teams. Or at least they like tried to qualify. They all 5 played internationally. And the only guy the Americans had was Jason Tatum. He's the guy who didn't play. So that's or didn't play a ton, obviously, for the US. So that tells you just how much better it's getting. But for the U.S., the guys, the old guys stepped up to such a degree. And obviously you saw how important it was for LeBron, for Durant, and for Curry to win this thing. And they were all sensational. All 3 of them were incredible. And it's not just they carried these guys. I mean, there were some really good performances by other guys. I thought Devin Booker did a great job. I thought that, sort of second line, front court of Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo was really good defensively. But Durant was excellent throughout the tournament. LeBron really summoned a lot. It's just amazing. The guy's 39, what he was able to do in this tournament. And Curry, like you said, was quiet. He wasn't just quiet, he was off shooting the basketball. And then the last 2 games, he was 17 of 26 from 3. That's crazy. I mean, it was nuts. And I think, the last one he hit, two guys sort of draped over him and that zone kind of converging, and he just throws it off just falling over to his side and, makes rain with that shot. I mean, it was just one of the best shots I've ever seen. And you've seen Steph hit shots like that for so many years. It's incredible. But to do it at that moment when they really needed a dagger, to throw that thing in was wild. I mean, like in both games late, it was like he couldn't miss anything. It didn't matter where he was shooting from. A couple of those looked if it was somebody else is ill-advised. But Steph's the best shooter we've ever seen by a long shot. I mean, he was magnificent. All three of those guys, you could tell how bad they really, really wanted this. Steph never won a gold medal. And in the Olympics, I think he won one in the World Cup, but this was, it's what he was able to do in the last couple of games was incredible. And so, yeah, again, like they're playing again, a France team. They don't just have NBA players. They have the next guy, they have a 7'4" freak of nature and Victor Wembanyama, plus the defensive player of the year and Rudy Gobert, and Nick Batum and Evan Fournier, who is incredible in FIBA play also, and some guards who we didn't know too much about who really stepped up. And so, yeah, I mean, they needed, some of the best players that history, that this game has ever known to step up, and they did.
Yeah, and something I'm thinking about now, this is kind of the handing off of the baton, because between now and 2028 in Los Angeles, both the men's and women's teams are going to see massive changes, because you're not going to see LeBron. I don't think you're going to see Steph Curry. You're not going to see KD. I don't expect Tyrese Haliburton. Yes, there's going to be him and some newer guys. And on the women's side, of course, you expect to see Caitlin Clark. You expect to see Angel Reese and some younger players, because this was as old as they're going to get on the women's side. Now those players are kind of stepping away and stepping out. And so this is going to be a big change the next time we see these teams 4 years from now.
Yeah, I think the women will be not a ton different. Obviously, Diana Taurasi, presumably will not be on the next one. I think she was asked about it and said, that I'll be in LA having a beer with Sue Bird. Sue was obviously shocked that Taurasi even wanted to do this. But you're going to have obviously that kind of changing of the guard. I mean, just presumably, like you said, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese will be a part of this, and they'll have to work those two in. But they will, I think, still have the pillars in Stewart and Wilson, and I think 4 years from now, those two will still be pretty spectacular players. But there will be some other, obviously there'll be some other players that will be elevated by then. You'll see players like Sabrina Ionescu play more. Some of the younger crowd, will come together in some way, shape, or form. On the men's side, you are going to see it is going to be a real changing of the guard, and it's going to be interesting what it looks like. I think that was sort of, I don't want to say the word is a concern, but a little surprised with the whole Jason Tatum situation for that reason, because in a manner of speaking, I mean, he was the guy who had the best season, the best NBA season for this American team, out of anybody that was on it. He was the only guy who was first team All NBA. Obviously, his team won the championship. He came in a manner of speaking with the most elevated profile. Obviously, LeBron and Durant and Curry had sort of their whole history body of work behind them, but Tatum was the guy who's most at his peak, basically coming into this out of everybody on this team. But because those guys were so good, because LeBron and Durant in particular were so good, and because Kerr really liked that, I think that's that second team front line of Davis and Adebayo, there wasn't obvious space for him. He was in kind of a weird place. I think Kerr said there's nothing he did wrong. I just like these other lineups and these other combinations. But there's a chance that Tatum's the guy in 4 years in LA, that basically at that point that it's more focused on him. And I would have expected, considering that possibility, to make sure he's in the mix, that he is getting real run with these guys, and that you're starting to build some chemistry there for 4 years from now. And so it's basically that there's a good chance that it's Tatum and Edwards are, your starting wings, that it's them at the 2 and the 3, and you're building outward from there. Obviously Edwards had a phenomenal cycle, both in FIBA, in the World Cup last year, and his performance this year. I mean, he came in with all kinds of confidence, and he showed it. You absolutely see the confidence isn't even the word. I mean, I don't even. I mean, Edwards just really believes he's as good as anybody ever, and that he'll take any shot. He is scared of nothing, and so Edwards is going to be one of those guys in 2028. But Tatum could be the other one. Those two guys could be the ones that are really sort of carrying a lot of Team USA on their back, going forward. Obviously, certainly the U.S. men go through these cycles where it's almost like they have to have something bad happen for, everybody to want to play. It's got to be a little sketchy. There's got to be something wrong. I think 2021 was a little bit, the Tokyo Olympics, basically, like they lost the game. They obviously won the whole thing anyway, but like it wasn't their best performance. It wasn't their most dominant performance. Obviously they didn't, got fourth place in World Cup. At that point, that when they look shaky, that's what tends to get everybody out. When they win, they tend to be a little lax the next time, and it tends to be a little bit harder to get people out. Maybe just the fact that Curry and LeBron and Durant did this one means you'll still get everybody you need next time around. And there are some guys who will not have had the chance yet, who will sign up for it, you would presume. So we'll see what that looks like. It's going to be very interesting to see how that team shakes out. I mean, I think, I think Jalen Brunson then fits better on this team. I think Brunson was plenty, accomplished enough. It was just, you already have, Curry, starting at point guard. You've already got Drew Holiday, on this team, and you're thinking, okay, Haliburton makes more sense because you need a guy who's just going to pass, and obviously he didn't end up playing a whole ton anyway. So it's going to be interesting just how that works. But I think a guy like Brunson plays next to him. It's going to be interesting to see just this next crop of rookies coming up. For instance, Cooper Flagg, everybody's talking about already. We'll see if he ends up being a guy that's already in the international discussion by the time you get to LA. So it's going to be interesting to see how that group shakes out, but there will be a changing of the guard, presumably. Like I said, you would presume the big three are all out, by then. But I mean, I guess you never know. I mean, like, the idea that LeBron would still be effective at 43 does not blow my mind one bit. Like, you look at him right now, he looks indestructible. There's nothing, like over 82, he's not the same, but any given night, he's still that good. He's incredible.
I thought you meant over the age of 82.
Yeah. I mean, over the course of 82, yeah, he is. LeBron will be okay at 50. Look, you don't want nothing on LeBron at a YMCA at 50. I promise you that.
No, sir. Hey, we've got more coming up. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Stars with us, and we're back with more right after this.
Segment is brought to you by Freethink Apparel. This segment is brought to you.
Whoops. You can just edit that out there, Nick. 47, whatever it was. I'm doing these for you today because I know that it's coming fast. We've got a new producer.
How you doing there?
And he got his first intro in by he didn't start the stream when we started the show, when we were about 35 minutes in, and I'm like, why does this look different? Why is this not working?
I realized my mistake.
Yeah, thank God you did. And I'm like,
yeah. Well,
it's not easy stuff, Nick. I'm glad,
I noticed when you hit go live, there's a second confirmation button. So that first time I did it, I just hit go live, then went directly into the intro, then didn't see that go or the confirmation button. And it's a costly mistake, but now I know.
Yeah, and Nick, just so you know, this is going to be a super short segment. So if Dustin is okay with it, I'm going to have to take a quick break after, because we have to be at 54 minutes, a hard break on the first one.
Okay.
Which is only 6 minutes, actually 5 minutes from now. And we've got.
Yeah, you guys will have 4 minutes to talk.
Okay.
Yeah, then I'll break and we'll come back.
Okay. Right. Do you want me to come pop back in like right at that 54 mark as a reminder, just in case?
Always.
Okay.
Always.
Cool.
Always.
Cool.
Oh, mercy. Yeah.
We got about
the fun and joy of adding a new.
Yeah, we got about another minute and 20.
Oh, mercy, mercy, mercy. How much longer do you have, quote unquote, off?
More. I mean, when stuff pops up, I'll write it, but I don't have quote unquote off until like end of September. I don't know when camp is.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get thrown in on random stuff. For that reason, like I'm not gonna have to I don't know, pitch hit for Colts or anything. I mean, I guess every once in a while if somebody's out, I might have to do something. Which reminds me, I've got other bits and pieces thing. Every once in a while I've got stuff to do, but for the most part, I'm pretty good until pretty good. Camp's usually starts late September. I don't know if it'll be like the 29th or a week.
30 seconds.
You have to say when to go.
Yep, 15.
And then play the
bump
intro.
Bump in.
Alrighty. In 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. I hope you had a great weekend. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star with us. We were talking a lot about the Olympics as the Olympics came to a close, moving to LA in 4 years from now. We had a lot of weird, not weird, but cool stuff. Snoop Dogg was the rage of the Olympics, man.
He really was.
But he's the rage of anything he does, it seems
he does. He does. It was wild. I mean, yeah, he was phenomenal. I thought, he's always had just a big, huge personality, and obviously go back to even, the days when he came out. But you could just tell how much, he really enjoyed it. Like, that was sincerity. I think from everything he did, he bought into, and you saw real emotion in terms of him connecting to every team and athlete he went to go see. And I thought that was really cool. I mean, it wasn't he wasn't playing it up or faking it. You just got to see man, he seemed just sort of really grateful, I guess, that it was man, I get to do this. This is really cool. He was sitting next to Caleb Dressel's wife for one of the swimming races. And you saw real, emotion and him getting invested in it. And just, he was the official American mascot for the Olympics and just was totally bought in. And he was hilarious every time I saw him. The Martha Stewart gig with the dressage, it was dancing with a horse. He was absolutely hilarious. It was just from top to bottom. It was hysterical and it was cool. It is still wild to consider, you got to remember the 90s, and when all those guys came out, Snoop and Dre and prior to that, Ice-T and Ice Cube and all those guys. This was it was contraband to have those CDs. I was 11 when Doggy Style.
Bootleg it, baby. You had to bootleg them.
I had to tape it because you couldn't I could not have that in my house. If my mom found that, I was in trouble. I was dead. The cover art on Doggy Style, that is contraband. You cannot even you're yeah, it was bad. And so it's wild to see that's what he's turned into. But and he's going to be even bigger in these games in LA. It was cool to take, after everything he did in Paris, you go straight to, they had the handoff and he's in LA with Dr. Dre basically ushering in the LA 2028 Olympics. And you're wow, this is, it's so far past mainstream. Obviously they played the Super Bowl together already. But to do it at the Olympics is even something else.
Absolutely. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star with us, enjoying the visit as always, but we've got to take a quick break and we've got lots more coming up in the next hour. Back with Dustin right after this. Oh, mercy. Unfortunately, one of Todd had to cancel today, and then we've already had Greg on, and he can't come back on to redo the first segment. Oh, live radio, baby. It's
Happens,
not live,
man. It
but
happens.
recorded live. Yes, it
Yeah.
do. Yes, it do.
It happens.
I'll ask about Tyrese and what do you think his experience was like, and
Sure.
what that'll do for his second year as being the guy.
Right. Mm-hmm.
The guy. I didn't get to see all the Tom Cruise stuff. Did you see all that?
I saw it in bits and pieces. I saw it on Twitter. I didn't really watch. Didn't really hone in on closing ceremonies. So watch the women's game, and then I had a bunch of running around work to do around here. But yeah, no, I saw bits and pieces. I turned it back on for the handoff at like 10 o'clock at night. I saw who did I see? I saw the Chili Peppers play a song. And that was about it.
The Peppers played. Billie Eilish, and Snoop Dogg took the stage and said, "Drop it like it's hot, drop it like it's hot." Before Dr. Dre for an epic performance of the next episode. So there you go.
I was surprised. I wasn't surprised. Well, like surprised isn't the word, but like it's cool they had Dre out there too. It's like, all right, like everybody just remember, like it's as good as much of an icon as Snoop is. Like Dre did make Snoop. Like we never heard of him before. Like that was he. If not, I mean, Snoop would have made it on his own, but like, Dre was it at that period. Like that, like he was making everything work. So, but that's still cool. So it's cool every time everybody reminds him just how important Dr. Dre was.
Cignetti just spoke.
Yep.
Did he?
Okay. I'm
What
looking
did he
for
say?
it.
That's where are we on the getting back? What time?
We've got about
54.
30 seconds.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I'm looking for it. I'm on.
Let's focus on coming back first.
Yeah, I know. Got 15 on IU's page. I don't see anything. 10 seconds. Oh, I see it live 10 a.m. All righty. We are back.
This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. Thank you so much. Hope you had a great weekend. This weather, man. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star with us. Dustin, what? So much for global warming, man. July was one of the nicest Julys I can remember in my lifetime. August kind of came in like a heat ball, and I had a media event down at French Lake last Tuesday, and it was so hot that it about took me down. And then like the day after that, and even through right now, it's just been like September again. I'm like, what in the world? I'm digging it.
It's been pleasant. It's been nice. It's weird. It's taken it too far a little bit. It's like 56 outside last night. I'm not cool right now. I'm not cool with that. It's gotta be hot all summer. I'm like summer is supposed to be summer. Like I hope that doesn't mean it's gonna be like colder in September. I'm not cool with that either. But
no, we don't want that. Don't want colder. It's easier to cool down, I guess, than it is to warm up. I don't know.
Right. Don't take me into winter yet. I'm not interested in that. Not that.
No.
But it has been nice. It's really sunny outside, pleasant. It's good.
It's been like, speaking of LA, I mean, it's been like Southern California weather, man. This has been crazy.
A little bit. No, that's a good way to put it, because it's not. It doesn't always cook down there. It tends to be pretty pleasant. So it's nice. Yes, I think we got a whole week of somewhere like touching 80. I think so. That's gonna be nice.
Tyrese Haliburton did not get a ton of playing time in the Olympics, but it was the experience that he got. He got to play with some of
the best players in the world.
The best players in the world on his own team, and then against some of them as well. But he gets a chance to do that in the league. But he had to take on another role on this Olympic team, and there has to be a benefit to that when he comes back because he's the guy for the Pacers. But it has to be great to learn in every facet possible.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously attitude was such a big thing for him in terms of, like you could be bothered by this. And you could sense that, Tatum was bothered a little bit by it. Obviously, like they both had some DNPs. And you could tell that bothered Jason Tatum. And I get why the difference. Again, Tatum's coming off a championship. He's first team all NBA. He's just like, what I don't understand. Haliburton, I think, knew coming in that his role was only going to be so much. I mean, I think his presumption, if you asked him before, what do you think his role is going to be? He's like, well, I'm going to pass. Like no one expects me to score the basketball. Like, I'm going to be put in second team point guard and be expected to just get guys buckets. And it didn't even end up really being that. Again, once Kawhi Leonard, went down and they brought in Derek White. Derek White's the better defensive option. And, the guys he was playing with, the second unit guys, were plenty good enough to get their own shots. I mean, Durant was second unit for a while. Obviously, Anthony Edwards was. Those guys don't necessarily need to be teed up. And you've got Adebayo and Davis again playing that front line. They move some things around other than that. But it just didn't require somebody to, have to create that much as a point guard. And, they still needed defense. They still needed somebody to get up and play good on the ball defense. They had Holiday in the first unit and, then, White in the second unit. They moved that around of the course of the tournament, but those guys were really, really important. And so Haliburton's role became, sort of on court role was drastically less than it was. And so obviously he could have taken that as a slight. He could have been bummed out about that. But you obviously saw that he still recognized, man, if I was 15 years old and you told me I'd be on a team with LeBron and Steph and Durant, I wouldn't care if I played 2 minutes. If I get to win a gold medal just by hanging out with those guys, like I would sign up for that 1,000 times. If I just got to hang out and not even wear a jersey, I would, and I got a free trip to Paris to do that, I'd sign up just because, he'd reached this level of success in the NBA. That doesn't mean he was going to take that as any less of, a godsend. And you could tell just from start to finish that it was like, okay, like I'm going to do everything I can for one thing, to learn. I mean, I think he went out there intending to pick people's brains. And I've said this about Tyrese a lot. He's not shy about just asking questions and just saying like, what do you guys do in this situation? What do you guys do in that situation? Like he doesn't like have to be cool about the way that he asks it. Like he's just got such a high basketball IQ. And sometimes he'll just start in like, well, what do you do on that pick and roll play? Or like, what do you do in this defensive coverage? Or what do you guys do here? Or, I'm sure he asked them just routine questions. Like, how do you build muscle? How do you stay healthy? How do, what are some things that you do? Like, I'm sure he had no problem just asking LeBron that question or Steph or any of those guys. And he was just the first guy in line every time. And he was, getting excited as any fan on the bench, like you saw him just jumping up and down and losing his mind and adding, I think that it's important that your bench does that. Like it sounds stupid. I think people don't think it matters, but it matters. And I think it's fascinating that you see, whoever was cycling in and out, they were losing their minds when they did good stuff, when they're dunking or whatever, like that, like despite the fact that these are the best players in the world and they're all, bajillionaires, nobody was acting like they were too cool to get excited for their teammates when they weren't playing, and Haliburton was sort of first in line doing that. And no matter, again, he was taking flat out DNPs, 0 minutes in the semis or the finals, and, was just constantly there. And again, these are small things. And, what does that do for somebody? When they're going to be, the point guard, the man on their team next year. I mean, only so much. But, like it's not the same as if you actually got to play and had to run that team and everything like that and had to win games for them. It's not as much of a benefit. But he made sure that he wasn't leaving there with nothing. He was trying to get information, knowledge, and saying, all right, I'm going to, even if I'm not playing, I'm going to add something to, the atmosphere. I'm going to add something to, to the vibe, and, just make sure everybody's up, that energy matters. And, it matters when you're slipping. It matters when, you're not playing as well as a team as you want to. Having guys like that on the bench, that they're creating that kind of environment makes a difference. I thought it was hilarious. I don't know if you saw the tweet, but like after the game, after they got the gold medal, like he took a picture of himself holding up his gold medal, and he says, when you didn't do nothing on the group project, but you still got an A. It was just like he was at least self-aware that he did not play at all, that he didn't do any on-court things. And I'm sure when we talk to him, whenever that's going to be next, whether that's at camp or sometime in between, he'll acknowledge like, hey, obviously that's not what I wanted. I did want to play. I did want to contribute, and it's a little bit of a bummer, but I made sure I was all in, and I was blessed to be on a team where I got to see and be a part of that. And I get a gold medal for getting to watch Steph Curry do something that blew my mind. And so I'll be very interested to see just what he has to say about it. But I mean, I think considering, that he was the odd man out, I mean, you had, Tatum was for a little bit, Derek White had a DNP, some other guys had him moving around, but Haliburton, played the fewest minutes on the team. So, like that had to sting, to some extent, but, he made the most of it. And I think, I certainly don't imagine he'll ever regret having been there. And I think it'll still be one of his biggest career accomplishments, just making that team, was a deal for him. And again, you could tell he made a point. He was going to enjoy it no matter what. And it seemed like he did.
Absolutely. And it's always you get out of anything what you want. And obviously I'm sure that playing with those guys, practicing with those guys, listening to them, taking advice. I'm sure that LeBron was passing that along, but that is something he can bring back, because while there's no guarantee that he will be on the next roster for the Olympic team, more than likely he will be on the next Olympic roster.
Yeah, presuming nothing goes wrong. I mean, obviously he has to, think about injury. He's been through it enough times. I think this one was just like, to be a part of this team, he would have crawled over broken glass. It's just, 4 years from now, if he has more seasons interrupted by injury, is there going to be a time when it doesn't make sense for him to go? I think he'll still probably want to go, most likely. He says, I will show up anytime they ask me to show up. And so, will he do FIBA every year? He can do FIBA in the World Cup. I don't know. We'll see, how many of those he wants to do, because obviously, again, like you're going to get into kind of the physical piece of it, and he's going to want to, he is going to want to rise up as a player, and it's going to get harder for him. I think obviously you saw it got harder for him at the end of last year. I mean, you got through the in-season tournament, basically at that point, mid-December last year, he's a dark horse NBA MVP candidate, and could have been first team All NBA if he took the vote right then. But he knew that, that was going to change, especially just after they got out of Vegas. It was like, all right, well, everybody is going to start double teaming you now. They're blitzing every ball screen. They're sending two bodies, and they're forcing you to get rid of the basketball as early as they can. And so he's got to deal with that. And then he had the hamstring injury, and, just was never, it was dealing with back problems. Also dealt with, the trade of Buddy Hield, I think shook up his game a little bit, because he was playing half on the ball, half off the ball. He had a lot of adjustments he had to make. And so, now he's got to kind of grow from those, like he's still, I don't know if he's still feeling pain in the hamstring or not. He was hopeful that he'd be, rested and fine, by this point. Don't know if he was, or not. So we'll see. Obviously he's got a couple more months, until he has to get on the floor. And so again, he's got a lot of development pieces to go after this. Like this is now where, and we're talking about, they got to use the word window now, because they've got Siakam for 4 more years. They're not in a place where they can add a lot more pieces to what they have financially. They're getting close to the luxury tax, and they're not far. If they extend, say, Miles Turner, they're looking to getting towards that first apron that really restricts a lot. You can do a player movement. So this is their group now. What they're going to have, this is the team that they can look at and say, okay, if you're making a championship push, this is what it looks like. So in sometime really in the next 4 years, you need to see Tyrese operating at the highest possible level. And he's obviously gonna have to make decisions that fit with that. So there's a lot coming for him, basically starting this year and going on from there. And again, that's why the learning experience is big, is get around all these guys who have won championships, won MVP, been at the top of the league, and get a sense of what it's going to require, because this is now coming for them. It's trying to max out, on this group that they're going to have. It's really kind of starting this year. You could start to use the term window and say, this is the time that you have to make a push. And it's coming.
Dustin Dopirak, the beat writer for the Pacers at the Indy Star, talking with us now. Dustin, the Pacers have a lot coming back. They may have as good a team coming back as they have. How long has it been since they've had a team this stacked and ready to go coming back into the season? It's been a minute.
Probably been 10 years. I mean, we're probably looking at the Paul George teams, David West, Roy Hibbard, all of those guys. I mean, that's what you probably have to go back to basically to equal this. I think, you kind of forget how good those teams were. I think certainly because in so many of these occasions when they've been held out of the finals has been because they've been going against these super teams, basically. Obviously at that point it was the Heat. They made a run at Cleveland, obviously in the Oladipo years. But obviously they bring this whole group back, and you're starting to see what they can become. I mean, obviously they've only got really the two all-star players in Haliburton and Siakam, but you have Turner right there as kind of a third guy, and you're starting to see what other guys can be. Andrew Nembhard, obviously, I thought he had a really good Olympics, obviously, prior. Than Canada went down a little bit faster than they wanted to. They got a tough draw having to play France in the quarterfinals of that tournament. That was a really good Canada team, and Nembhard's had some really good moments, I thought, in group play. You saw from what he did in the playoffs that he can be more of a scorer than a lot of people realize. Aaron Nesmith obviously gives you one of those sort of a bigger defender option. But Siakam, is as good of a player as they've had. I mean, he's really special, and so you get a full year now of Haliburton and Siakam to play together. And Turner really fits well with those two, basically, where you kind of have this, or either one of them can play two-man game, but the third, whoever's not involved, basically you creates gravity. Basically, like Miles Turner, both of them can be the guy who sets the ball screen for Haliburton at the top of the key, but the other one can go space the corner space in the corner, and take defenders out, or basically if you just kind of run pick and roll, you can create and kick to him, whoever that is, whether it's Turner or Siakam, and those guys can make shots. I mean, it's a force offensively, and certainly again it's by far I think the best offense they've ever had. Certainly coming off of leading the NBA in scoring, finishing second in offensive efficiency. I mean, it really was a historic offense last year. Certainly from a franchise perspective, it's as exciting of a team as you've seen. Obviously, they've won in the past, but in a lot of cases, their best teams have been defensive oriented. And this team has to get better defensively if it wants to really make a push to win a title. But they are just offensively, they're incredible. It's what Haliburton is able to do with these guys is, to make this whole thing work is unbelievable.
Offensively, I agree with you, and defensively, that's one area where I think Tyrese Haliburton has to make his game better.
Sure.
Partly probably why he didn't see the minutes in the Olympics as we would have seen.
Yeah, no, definitely why. I mean, and I think it's not even so much that he was so bad, but it was just like when they got White for Leonard being out. White's one of the best on-ball defenders in the league. I mean, you have had White and Holiday playing together, and that's one of the key engines for why the Celtics won the whole thing, is because those are two of the best on-ball defenders in the NBA. I think there's out of the two all-NBA teams, I think four of the guys on the first team, I think, were centers, were bigs, were Adebayo, Davis, Wembanyama, and Gobert. And so I think there was one kind of perimeter defender on first team All-NBA, and I forget who it was. But, you have Holiday and White on second team. And, those guys are, so they're two of the best five, perimeter defenders in the NBA on the same team. And so, you bring White in, it's like, okay, again, like White can distribute just fine. He doesn't have to create the same kind of offense, create shots at the same capacity. He doesn't have to be as magical of a passer as Haliburton is. All he has to do is just give the ball to other guys, and he can get down and defend. And so the math works better than it does for Haliburton. It's like, what is Haliburton creating that you weren't already getting from just Anthony Edwards' capacity to create his own shot? Like obviously you can imagine a scenario where they're a team for longer, that they can have a more kind of cohesive offense where, Ty knows where everybody's going to be. He doesn't even have to look at him to know, but like, that's not something you can put together in a month. You can't put together that kind of offense, no matter how sharp your point guard is, with these guys in a month. On the flip side, you can get down and play, really tough defense, and White's much better built for that than Haliburton is. But I think, the issue with Haliburton is this: he is a really sharp off the ball defender because he knows where the ball is going to be. He's just his basketball IQ is truly through the roof. I mean, when you're talking to Haliburton, like to really get how smart he is, I mean, you have to have him talk around people who really get it. Like watch him talk with JJ Redick or something like that. Like I can't even have the conversations that tell you how smart Tyrese Haliburton is. He is so far above my ability to understand it that, it's just like you have to sort of watch him talk to somebody else who really, really gets it to know, what this guy knows and understands. But so that means he can watch film and get a sense of, this is where they're trying to pass the ball. This is what they want to do on this play. So I have to get here. But when it's mano a mano and the guy's driving it at him, he can't stop them. And he knows that. He's literally, broken down his own defensive game. I've asked that question where he had to be, and that's really what he said. He's like, I feel like I'm an elite off the ball defender, but I get pushed around. And so at the end of the day, I mean, it starts physical with him, and that's kind of the biggest issue is he's had, I think playing FIBA the last 2 years, it made it difficult for him to really get in the weight room and transform. I think last year in particular, I think he was trying to be smart leading up till his, contract extension, and making sure that he wasn't injuring himself and costing himself millions of dollars. And so at some point, he's got to really devote to that. Because I think you even looked at him next to the other guys, on that men's team, and you're like, man, like Ty could afford to get in the weight room. It stands out. He's and so yeah, because just like you've got to be able to, just be able to take it and not get pushed back. And there was a couple of times he just got pushed back, and FIBA refs were not calling a lot, especially in that final against France. I mean, they let a lot go. And so in games like that, you have to be able to stand your ground, because they're not giving you every charge, every bump, and stuff like that. So that's got to be the next part, and he knows that. But he's got to be able to truly dedicate to it, and obviously have it not cost him, athleticism, speed, to be able to play it fast and free as he wants to, but find a way to put on the muscle and the weight and be able to carry it. And, so that, when guys are driving at him, he's able to stand his ground and, wall them off and push him back. So that's the big move he's got to make, I think, to be a next level player. Again, he's special anyway. He's going to be an all-star anyway. He's going to be all NBA anyway, even if he doesn't get better. But, it just would go a long way for them as a team, for him as a player, if he can become somebody who can, he doesn't have to be an all NBA defensive guy. He's got to be better than he is. You've got to be able to trust him that, if he's out there on the perimeter and somebody's driving at him, he can stop it.
Dustin Dopirak, Indy Star beat writer for the Indiana Pacers. Nothing to do with that. It's it's football. Football season's here, man.
So weird.
Started, yeah, I know. They got started yesterday with their preseason games. We're 2 weeks from this Saturday is Indiana's, Purdue's, the first game for them. Week 1, of course, week 0 was in there, but that's
week 0.
That's a weird story. But we're under 3 weeks from the first college football week, the real week. And there was a lot of excitement, a lot of change in the Big Ten with Oregon and UCLA and USC and Washington, Indiana, of course, with Kurt Cignetti. Half the teams in the Big Ten either have a coach in their first season or their second season. This is just wacko, man.
Sure is. Yeah. And you've got Jim Harbaugh getting sanctioned in a 4-year show cause. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a wild, so many wild stories. It's just, yeah, like from just a consumer standpoint, like I feel like I haven't really dove into what are these teams going to be like, but a part of it's because like there's just so much transfer that you're like, okay, well, who is even good, but you're looking at in the Big Ten, Ohio State and Oregon are, everywhere I'm seeing is 2-3, 2-4, somewhere in those lines. I think the preseason poll comes out at noon. The AP poll comes out at noon. Our USA Today poll came out last week. And so you're going to see, those teams right up, in the top 5. So it's going to be fascinating, I think, how this whole year goes. And like you said, I mean, like nobody knows who anybody's going to be because there's so much turnover, first year coaches, all this stuff. And I presume, a lot of those first year coaches have a lot of turnover on their teams. Certainly Cignetti, has a lot of transfers, as you would expect, certainly from a guy who's coming off a really successful season, James Madison. It's going to be just fascinating to see how it shakes out. What that team looks like, what everybody looks like, how, what an 18-team Big Ten looks like. I think it's going to be bizarre. I mean, I remember way back the WAC, before the WAC split into the Mountain West, like they tried to pull that off. And obviously it's different when it's the WAC, the WAC in the 90s. But, the Big Ten is going to be different, but it's going to be interesting to see just, what standings look like, how all this stuff gets put together, because, you're not going to have balanced schedules or anything like that, or divisions or anything like that, like how a season actually plays out. And it seems like it could be one of those situations where like everybody beats everybody, outside of the Ohio States, the Oregons, the Penn States, and Michigans. There might be a separation there, but then everybody else is just beating each other up. It's going to be just fascinating to see. And it like we've talked about before, like how the schedule breaks for you is going to have a lot to do with how successful you can be, because, like it's you're not playing half the league. Actually, are you playing exactly half the league? This is 9 Big Ten. Yeah, you're playing exactly half the league.
Yeah, but there's since there's no divisions anymore, it's going to play out how it plays out. And for Indiana this season, I think it plays out extraordinarily well. Now, that's just by happenstance to me, because Washington, if this is a year ago, that changes the schedule entirely.
Yeah, when you're dealing with Michael Penix and Roma Dunze and all those guys.
And Kalen DeBoer and that whole crew. Even Michigan. I don't know what Michigan is truly going to be like. I know that they've got tons of talent and all this, but they've got a lot of problems. You people got a lot of problems, and you're going to hear from them.
Yeah.
So they got a lot of issues going on. I don't know how that's going to affect them. It had no effect on them last year, but they had the master in ignoring that stuff in Jim Harbaugh. I don't know that Sharon Moore is that guy.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, obviously we'll find out. I mean, it is, to your point, it's like what Harbaugh has, you can't necessarily, you can't teach or inherit.
Nope.
He's not. In short, he's just not normal. I don't know how else to put it. Like, if you're in like, you have to be like, just watch a press conference or try to in any way ask Jim Harbaugh a question. You're like, that's not like any experience I've ever had in my life. With like, he is just different, flat out.
He could have been, if he was Wyatt Earp at the shootout at the OK Corral, by the time he gets done talking, he would have been in Indiana when that shootout took place.
Yeah, you're just like, what?
He had nothing to do with it.
What are we even talking about? And like, I mean, he has things that he's fascinated with that you're like the things that you would think he should be focused on, he's not. Things that he is focused on are some things it's like a big deal to him that everyone cuts their grass. Like, it's just he's got the man's, mind just works differently. And so, no, you can't pass that off to an assistant coach and expect him to be like that. Like, he's just not. Like, there are not many people on earth like Jim Harbaugh. And so, So yeah, like I don't know how they're going to handle it, how they're, and Sharon's named, I think, in some of this Connor Stallion stuff. So like, how is he going to handle that?
Well, he's got a level 2 infraction right now headed towards
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, how is he going to fight through that? I don't know. Maybe he'll be great at it. Maybe he won't. I have no idea. None whatsoever. Obviously, there's just a ton of NFL talent that moved on. That's a different piece too. Is that like you can ignore a whole lot when you have players. When you have enough guys, they can. Maxine is not looking for. What are we talking about? I'm her father. I'm not allowing any of that stuff.
We will not have that.
She is currently very concerned about whatever is going on outside. Somebody's cutting the grass. But no, we got a kick out of it yesterday because she did sit right here on this couch and watch a lot of Olympics. And then we saw her jump on the bed yesterday. Like she got a good, she was in the air for like a good 3-4 feet, I think, to kind of clear the back rail on the bed. So that was impressive. So I think we think she's adding skills. I think she's working on her high jump, form, flopping and
1% better every day, right?
1% better every day, and she's getting there. But yeah, so no, I mean, don't know who Michigan's going to be. Think Penn State's going to be pretty good, but is that going to be enough for them to get them over the top? Obviously, they've been, throughout the last years of the Big Ten East, they've been in that scenario where they crush everybody but Michigan and Ohio State. And are they finally going to be able to beat at least one of them this year? Don't know. Certainly got some of the players' talent it's going to require. But are they going to actually get it done? We'll see.
Dustin Dopirak is the Indy Stars beat writer for the Pacers, but all-around sportsman. Glad to have him. Appreciate you, brother. Enjoy your week. Look forward, you and Maxine. And
there it is.
Right on cue, baby. Right on cue. We got lots more coming up.
Appreciate you, Jim.
Here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're back with it right after this.
This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East.
That's kind of how that would go, Nick.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I went through and added some clips from the press conference an hour ago. There's one that's kind of a little bit longer, but Cignetti, yeah, he just kind of, I don't want to say yaps, but
that's rare.
He goes into some detail.
What's it about?
On just kind of like his coaching style, on Haynes, on his philosophy of like taking timeouts or when to burn timeouts.
Perfect.
Then there's one couple, like a little brief injury report from Saturday's scrimmage. Then there's another that is just kind of just like a brief overall on what he thought.
Good
of
Lord.
The scrimmage.
Indiana used to act, Tom Allen would act like injuries were national secrets.
And I don't think it was any big names. So got about a minute and 30.
Hungry, man.
Me too.
I know what I'm going to have today, too. I'm going to have a sausage and egg sandwich.
There you go. Got me a little fruit salad I ordered or got from the grocery store over the weekend.
We got to get you through this first. There you go. Tomorrow to be. You see, you got all the peeps supporting you, man.
I appreciate it, chat. I appreciate it, Brian. It's a little anxiety driven going into this, but
they like the live segments better. They don't like hearing the commercials.
Yeah, I get that. I'll have to think that might be something I might have to like learn how to do. I'm sure it's super easy just to go in and add that commercial.
Add what?
Add the commercial into the
you just take the whole block. You just take the whole block.
Just throw it in.
Yeah. You either download it or whatever, and then just like anything else, you would download it and drop it in.
Okay.
Because if not, that's going to be a problem for today.
We are back. Sorry. In 3, 2, 1.
This segment is brought to you by the Rusty Gator.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate you. As always, of course, Jim Coyle with you. Kurt Cignetti meeting with the media today after or at the start of week 3 of fall camp. So we're in week 3, but it's getting closer, peeps. I'm telling you. You've got less than 3 weeks until the first game in college football, which, the first game is officially in week 0. There's like 4 or 5 games. I'm not talking about that crap. I'm talking about the real kickoff when everybody else plays, which is on the 31st of August, which there may be a couple of games like on that Friday night. I have to pull up the whole schedule. Actually, you see that, and it's not too hard to do, so we can do that. But what is the schedule? Let's pull that up right now while we're thinking. Saturday, August 24th is week 0. A whopping, I see 4 games on there. Florida State at Georgia Tech. Florida State's a 12-point favorite, so Montana State at New Mexico. Montana State's an 8-point favorite. You've got SMU, newest member of SMU. They're in the ACC now, right? Or am I getting it's so crazy that they're a 26-point favorite over Nevada. That should be and that's at Nevada. And then you have Delaware State at Hawaii. No line on that. Hawaii, a week 0 starter. Then the following week, I believe they play UCLA, and then I think UCLA has a bye week before hosting Indiana. So there's that. But there will be some Thursday games, as I thought, some early games. Rutgers out of the Big Ten, one of those taking on Howard. Nothing big there. Let's see. As I'm going through these Thursday games, North Carolina and Minnesota. So, and Minnesota, 2.5-point favorite. That's a little. North Carolina had a good season last year. So there's that. Coastal Carolina, Jacksonville State. That's about it. Illinois hosts Eastern Illinois on that Thursday as well. But then on Friday, so it's going to be games Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Lehigh, Temple at Oklahoma. That should be a great one. Oklahoma is a 42.5-point favorite, and the over-under is 59, so that tells you a lot. Do the math. Florida Atlantic they travel to Sparty to take on Michigan State, where they are currently Sparty is an 11.5-point favorite. Duke will host Elon, former Kurt Cignetti stop. And no line on the Duke game. Wisconsin hosting Western Michigan. Wisconsin, a 24.5-point favorite. Stanford hosting TCU. Now that should be something. And TCU is only an 8-point favorite in that, although it's on the road at Stanford. Then Saturday, baby, it just rips up. It starts going. Clemson at Georgia, Virginia Tech at Vandy, Iowa hosting Illinois State, Maryland hosts UConn. Penn State travels to West Virginia. Austin Peay is at Louisville. In Indiana State is in West Lafayette taking on Purdue. Kent State at Pittsburgh. Trying to think of some of the bigger games. Miami is at Florida. Hey, how about that for a week 1 opener? 3:30 game. Miami right now just a 2.5-point favorite. Colorado State is at Texas. Texas a 35-point favorite, of course. Florida International right now a 21-point underdog to the Indiana Hoosiers, as the Hoosiers will open up at 3:30 on the Big Ten Network. UTEP travels to Nebraska. Nebraska, a 27.5-point favorite. So there's that. Plus, there's plenty of others. I'm not going to go through the whole schedule because there's just too daggone many games. Alabama hosting Western Kentucky. You would think the spread would be more than that. Alabama's only a 31-point favorite in that game. A lot of points. I get it. But it is Alabama. Auburn, they're up against Alabama A&M, so nothing there. Notre Dame. Whoo, there you go. Here we're talking. The Fighting Irish travel to take on Texas A&M. That's a 7:30 game on ABC. It will. That's a 1.5-point favorite for Texas A&M right now. That should be a good one. Fresno State at Michigan. Michigan a 21-point favorite on that. Idaho and Oregon. No line on that game right now. UCLA at Hawaii. That's one for people to keep an eye on. UCLA right now a 13.5-point favorite in that game. But looking forward to seeing that and see how the Bruins perform. Georgia State at Georgia Tech, Houston Christian, SMU. Let's see. James Madison at Charlotte. How ironic. The former stop of Kurt Cignetti heads to Charlotte to take on the 49ers in a game in which JMU is a 7.5-point favorite, even with what all they lost. So that says a lot about what they still have going on there. Man, surprising to see that. But Charlotte is on Indiana's schedule. They will play the Hoosiers in the 4th game of the season in Bloomington. That is September 21st. There is also a game on Sunday, and it is a big one on that Sunday of opening weekend, rather. USC will travel to take on the LSU Bengal Tigers in Death Valley. 7:30 game on ABC. 6.5-point favorite for the Bengal Tigers right now. And then on Monday, Boston College travels to Tallahassee to take on the Florida State Seminoles. Florida State currently a 21.5-point favorite. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 5 straight days of college football once it gets started on the 29th. Of course, we've got the week 0. I've already said that, but lots of games of college football. Looking forward to that. So looking forward to that, ready to go. And Russell, I wish we were over, but we're not. Believe me. Curt Cignetti met with the media today, Indiana football coach, and had quite a bit to say, which is a little unusual, but talking about his coaching style, goes Brian Haynes, timeout structure, strategy. Let's hear what Coach Sig had to say today.
Daniel in front and back to this.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned Haynes and the way that he's been able to kind of create pressure schematically. You've kind of worked with him for a while. I'm wondering, how have you maybe seen him evolve with the looks that he throws? And also, how involved are you in that? I know you have more of an offensive history.
I think he's always evolving, always trying to learn, always trying to find the edge. He's a little bit like I am offensively. His brain never stops working or thinking about football. I'm sure he goes home and he's trying to figure out how to get to the quarterback, just like I go home and I'm thinking about something. And so schematically, I think it's evolved quite a bit. It really has. And it's about freeing up the guys that can get to the quarterback and putting them in the best one-on-ones to get to the quarterback and still be sound in your coverage. So, I don't get real involved in the spring or fall camp. No, we watch all 11 on 11, all practice, 7 on 7, 11 on 11. We all watch together as a staff. And I'll run remote, so I see who's doing what on the field and understand what they're doing. In season, generally middle of the week, Thursday, I'll go back and watch the defensive tape versus scouts. I'll watch Sunday the opponent's offense. And I've probably seen them on some exchanges, so I've got a pretty good feel for what we're facing. Because we're putting together a plan, ODK, gives us the best chance. And if I see a couple things during their practice that I have a question about, maybe I'll sit down with the defensive staff for 15, 30 minutes at the start of the morning. And, they'll give me the answers, or this is out. Yeah, we don't like that either. That's about, now, game day, I'll be on with the offense and the defense. I'll switch over, but the reason I switch over really with the defense early is just to make sure the flow of communication is good with substitution. But every once in a while, offense will come out, give you something a little different, and you're not lined up right, and maybe an uncovered receiver, and that's where I got to burn that timeout real quick before they snap the football. Something won't, because everywhere I've been, the head coach calls timeouts. I think we've had maybe a D coordinator call a timeout twice in my 14 years. I think one time maybe a player, but I got to be on top of those situations.
Kurt Cignetti giving you an indication of how deeply everything is thought out in what they do. And it also tells me that he has complete trust in people like Brian Haynes. I'm sure the same is for Tino Asunzeri and like Shanahan or Mr. Shanahan. But it sounds like that while obviously he's not completely hands off on the defense, it's more of a completely a trust. He knows that his defensive coordinator is taking care of the defense and doing what needs to be done. And he has the trust in that to kind of focus on what he's doing but making sure it's all brought together. But there is no doubt that Kurt Cignetti is a very, very detail-oriented guy, and that's part of what his success has been, is paying attention to all those details, because those details add up. We've talked about it. That's one of the reasons why I'm confident about what's going on with Indiana football this year, is because of those kinds of changes, because those details are the ones that have killed Indiana. How many stupid penalties have we seen them make over the last couple of years? How many horrific calls have we seen them make at certain times of a game? It's just not that mistakes are not going to happen. That's life. That does happen. But there are certain things, certain situations where they won't happen because of experience, because of having been there and having done it. I don't think Indiana had that before, obviously. They had a head coach that had never been a head coach, so obviously he had never been there. So I think that that is one of the biggest reasons why I think Indiana football will be successful this year, is simply because they are paying attention to every single little detail, and they know that those details matter more than ever for a program like Indiana when you're trying to climb. You can't make mistakes. Your margin for error is so much less. So I think that you're going to see a much more disciplined Indiana football team this year. Cignetti also had more to say, and talking about, what was he talking about, Nick? I forgot. Oh, a little injury report, which that's another change. Just the mention of the word injury used to be forbidden almost. Not almost. It was virtually forbidden. And the sheer fact that no matter how small it is, that this is happening is, to me, it shows trust. It shows like, hey, I'm not playing games. Kurt Cignetti's not playing games. I mean, I'm sure there will be some gamesmanship along the way on certain things, but overall, he's not into playing games. He knows that they have plenty to do, and hiding, hiding injuries, hiding who your quarterback is going to be. That has not been his MO. And you got to like that, because after 7 years of that, it was a little redundant. But let's hear what Coach Cignetti had to say on his Saturday report.
Sam, make it right to Daniel.
Coach, getting through fall camp healthy has been a priority. How did your team get through the scrimmage on Saturday?
We had a couple depth guys have some injuries. Josh Philliston injured his knee, he'll be out a while. Same with DePepe, the transfer from Michigan State. JoJo Johnson will be out a couple weeks. Other than that, we've got some minor things, but nothing significant.
The sheer mention of that is huge, because to me it just shows more of a no BS approach to Indiana football by this staff. And again, you have to respect that. You have to say, hey man, these guys are not screwing around. They're being serious, and they're not going to keep people guessing, keep people in the dark. I can promise you, like I've said, there's not going to be a quarterback race 6 games into the season. As a matter of fact, there's not a quarterback race right now, in my opinion. There damn sure won't be one when the 31st rolls around. Curtis Rourke is going to come out, unless barring something between now and that day, injury-wise. Curtis Rourke is the guy who's going to trot out to take the snaps. That's just, it's not a secret. I mean, it's not been announced, but it's not a secret. If you listen to what Coach Cignetti says, he doesn't play a lot of games. He has made so many comments about when he talks about Curtis Rourke, you hear what he says. When he talks about David Jackson, he is complimentary. They say things like he's got some things he still needs to work on, yada, yada. He says enough that you know who's who. And that's the same for most of the spots. Now, a lot of the other places are going to have a lot of rotations. Wide receiver, you kind of know who the starters are going to be, but they're just guys that are just going to be rotating in. Same with the running backs room. Same on the defensive side. You've got your core guys, whether it's at linebacker and ends and whatnot, but there's still guys that are going to be rotating in, even in the secondary. Fortunately, Indiana has some depth there, so they're able to do that. And they seem to have some depth at a lot of the spots, which is unusual. So we'll see how that goes and how it works. We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We've got to take a break. We'll be back with more right after we do.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville.
Cool.
All right. So don't forget, that's why you're going to have just a complete list, almost a step-by-step list, because, all right. Remember these here.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think that'll be super beneficial, is like literally just writing everything down step by step.
Absolutely. These are supposed to be changed at every break in, and then a different one out. And then always play this segment is brought to you by play a bump. And then there should be one that here's your host, blah, blah, blah. I've got, there's yet one more email I need to send you. Had a lot of stuff on it. Let me see if I can find it while we're waiting. And good, we won't have that much time to have to kill at the end, huh?
No, just about 4 minutes, 3 minutes to talk, then the outro. We end at 1:54, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go back. We'll go back live here at 150, 17-ish.
All right, I'm going to send you, I'm sending you an email right now. Forward to Nick. Boom. Boom, boom.
Got about 1 minute.
This has all the bumps. Well, why aren't we using those? Yeah, I just sent you one that's got everything on it. You may see, and it may be better for you to download those on a file of your own because there may not be room for all of them at the same time.
Okay.
Speaker.
20 seconds. About 5 seconds. All right, 3, 2, 1.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. Thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate everybody joining along, and especially for Dustin Dopirak jumping on here today, and Nick, the producer. Nick's first day, so getting him going. I appreciate you guys being so kind to him. Plenty coming up tomorrow. Don't forget, of course, Mike DeCourcy, Chronic Hoosier. We'll see what else we can get squared away. And don't forget, you've got the Never Lose Hoop golf outing coming up. My goodness, what it's a week from this Thursday, heaven's sakes. But here at Golf Club at Eagle Point, Thursday, August 22nd, it's 11 a.m. check-in, 12 p.m. noon shotgun start. And, of course, there's going to be so much there. For just the $125 entry fee, you get 3 shots at a hole-in-one of $10,000, $5,000, and $5,000 is what you win if you were to hit that. There's tons of IU memorabilia for the silent auction, a chance to win a stay-and-play golf package for 4 to a premier golf facility around there. There's many around the country you can choose from. You can sign up as a team, as an individual. You can become a sponsor. There's going to be tons of special guests from IU athletics, basketball players, and others. Jordan Hulls, of course, will be there amongst many others as well. Looking forward to it. I think Bob Kravitz will be playing there as well. So it's going to be a fun time. But in addition, just for signing up, you get lunch from Chick-fil-A, which that's a nice little add-on, but you get a sit-down dinner afterwards, a good sit-down dinner afterwards for the awards celebration and all of that. So there is a shirt. You get a shirt as well, but most importantly, you're helping area kids affected by cancer, and we greatly appreciate you. If you want to be a sponsor, if you can't play, let me know. We've got the beverage cart sponsor. It's only $250. Shout it out, baby. If you're looking to sign up, and you can go to events.golfstatus.com and just search Never Lose Hoop. That's HOOP. Again, events.golfstatus.com. Events.golfstatus.com. You can find it and search Never Lose Hoop. It'll pop right up for you and get you set up for that. And can't wait. Maybe you can win one of the flags. I think there's a pin flag from last year, autographed by this year's entire team. That's just one of the many things that will be in the silent auction that you can grab a hold of. So looking forward to that. Man, it was a fun day, as always. Glad to have you guys. Appreciate you being along for the ride as always, and looking forward to you being back tomorrow. Looking forward to us being back tomorrow as well. And Nick getting into some day 2 action. But Mike DeCourcy, Karate Hoosier, we'll see what else we can get squeezed in as well. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.